Hi friends, attorney Marina Shepelsky here. I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon of people talking about the Bill and Melinda Gates divorce. Yes, I'm going there.
Gossip to get our heart rates up.
We do divorce law at our office, our practices in New York and New Jersey. So for me, I look at it as a professional attorney that handles divorces and including handling high net worth divorces on a regular basis. So I have my own analysis of the situation and I thought you guys might find it interesting. So here I am talking about it. Before I get into it, I ask you guys to please subscribe to our channel. Press the little bell below to become a follower of our YouTube channel also.
Do it now. Do it.
So Bill and Melinda Gates have been married for 27 years. They have 3 kids. Their kids are all grown. So child support is not going to be an issue here at all.
Thank God.
They also spend most of their time now not really working on the business, but running their huge philanthropic charitable organization, which is called the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that is worth around, I think, $127 billion. Billion, not millions. And people are mostly talking about what's going to happen to this foundation. Bill Gates, of course, is the Microsoft co-founder and his company, Microsoft. Everyone knows you're using his products on your computer right now. If you use Word or Excel or some sort of a browser that Microsoft supports, like Explorer, their company went to billions of dollars in worth. It's being publicly traded on the stock market. And at this point, Bill and Melinda are not really participating in this business, but as I mentioned already, working with their foundation. So although the kids are grown, there's no need for child support, but there will be a big discussion here in this case about the division of their multiple assets, what the things that they own, their homes, the shares they have in the company, Microsoft, and other businesses that they have, and what happens to the charity foundation that they're running. I hear and I'm reading that Melinda has been talking to lawyers since 2019. And people are saying that one of the reasons that she wanted to get divorced, it might not be the only reason, but one of the reasons is the close ties between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein, that of course is now dead. We think he's dead.
Something is not right here. This is very suspicious.
That was a huge scandal, and if you've been following that brought about the fact that many rich politicians and businessmen, entrepreneurs, possibly President Clinton and possibly President Trump, have been to Jeffrey Epstein's island, and apparently Bill Gates had many meetings with Epstein. So, of course, Bill Gates himself is very private and has denied knowing or meeting with Epstein at all, but people are saying that that could be why Melinda started talking about divorce as early as 2019. Melinda did something smart. She went and spoke to a few of the top-notch attorneys, what's called conflicted them out, which means if Melinda had spoken to a high-profile divorce attorney, first, Bill wouldn't be able to use that attorney. And I think she went around and had quite a few consultations. That's what I hear from my colleagues. So a lot of these attorneys got conflicted out.
Hey, smart move.
As soon as they filed for divorce, Bill Gates transferred $1.8 billion worth of stock in the business to Melinda. So that might be the first step in the steps to come of them dividing up their properties and their assets. Of course, any real estate they own cannot be worth billions. There's just no such thing. But I'm sure they have multiple real estate investments and homes that they use. And I'm sure by now they each had chosen the home that they want to keep to kind of use as their base to live in. And people are talking about Bill Gates becoming available and Melinda becoming available for dating. And they're curious about what happens to them when they're dating, but at least when they're dating, they don't have to worry about custody and visitation of their kids because the kids are grown. Since their marriage, they never had a prenuptial agreement before their marriage, nor a post-nuptial agreement like some celebrities have. It's not the case with the Gates, so they're gonna probably divide everything fair and square because of the length of the marriage. Everything is gonna be 50-50. And of course, each of them has a right to agree to a certain division that might not look fair, maybe to somebody like myself or to you, but to them is fair. And that's one of the things that people do in divorce. It's not always 50-50. Sometimes one side gets more of this, another side gets more of that. And if two people and their attorneys agree and work that out, then it's not a problem.
Well, if that's your choice, then that's your choice.
Things that people purchase during marriage, whether they buy those things in two names or separately in just one name, are still owned communally. It's still marriage property or communal property, jointly owned property, even if one party bought it without the other person's name on it, even if one party didn't include or didn't want to include the spouse there. Because things are bought during the marriage, even in one person's name, it has to be split and divided in a divorce. And of course, if this was a more simple divorce, we basically write out a list of what people own on one side, we write out a list of what people owe, their liabilities, their debts. On the other side, we subtract and we divide. And whatever is left over, it becomes what we are splitting up, and the value of it gets split up. And this includes pension funds, this includes investment accounts, this includes real estate properties, this includes vehicles, any kind of special ownership of anything has a value, it gets appraised and divided. Now, how do people physically divide it? Like, for example, Bill Gates did the very thing. He transferred stock to Melinda's name. 1.8 billion already was transferred to Melinda. This is what people do. They agree that after the divorce, this, and the other is going to be owned by the wife, by Melinda. And Bill, or the husband, gets to keep this, and the other. And those other assets will be transferred or assigned, or, you know, there might have to be a closing for the other properties, which now will be owned by the husband. So at the end, unless the parties agree otherwise, which they might end up doing for their foundation, people end up splitting things and putting them in their name alone. But people who are married for so long and who do so much philanthropy, charity work, and being involved with all kinds of scientific and research and environment protecting projects as the Gates are, they might decide to continue their work with their foundation, maybe keep it in the two names because they have shared kids. Their kids will inherit all this. Although it's been said that the Gates have transferred most of the property out and will not be leaving it to the kids because they wanted the kids to grow up doing things for themselves and not being spoiled. But perhaps the foundation is different, and I don't have all that information. So perhaps they will work things out with their co-investors like Warren Buffett and other people that they work with, and make family decisions about what they will keep in their own name and what they will continue to own together. Other than that, they will probably have to pick a reason, what's called grounds for their divorce. I'm sure the reason will be irretrievable breakdown of their relationship, or sometimes it's called no-fault divorce. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be contested. It seems like they're going for no-fault divorce that's going to be uncontested, and collaborative, which means they will work out with their lawyers how to divide things and divide them outside of court. They will not be asking any judge for making any rulings. It doesn't look like that right now. It seems like they have both accepted the decision to get divorced, They probably worked out with their teams when they're going to announce this divorce, a long time before. They are probably having their lawyers already working on how everything will be split up, if anything.
There's no drama here.
All that will be worked outside of court. It will be confidential. It's very likely we will never ever read about it or know all the details, because unlike regular people, even regular people actually have a right to keep their records sealed and confidential. I'm sure that 100% sure that the Gateses will want to keep their divorce confidential. So no details will be public other than the fact that it was signed by a judge. And money is already moving. Of course, don't forget that somebody who owns this much investments and has such a big share of the market, actually, because Microsoft is one of the biggest companies on the stock market, will have to somehow probably inform and work with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. They already had to make a special filing on May 3rd by an investment firm controlled, I'm looking it up, by Bill Gates, and that investment firm is called Cascade Investment. Inform the public of the assets being transferred. Also, don't forget, Melinda has her own assets. She's written her own books. She has her own companies. One is called, one of her books was called The Moment of Lift, How Empowering Women Changes the World. So her companies that empower women are her own. They're not really Bill's. But again, as I mentioned earlier, things like that have value can be shared in divorces, especially if they have money sitting there and ownership of assets of the company. So even a non-profit company that is not supposed to have a profit has assets. Maybe they own a building. Maybe they have bank accounts for operations of the company. Those can be split up in a divorce. And I understand that during the pandemic, they spent a lot of time working together, and they worked with public health issues. People understand that perhaps the pandemic contributed to this divorce, because who knows, these are really wealthy people and it's hard sometimes to understand how they think. So there's a lot going on here with this divorce. Let's stay tuned. Let's see what happens. There was no prenup, so it looks like everything will be divided 50-50, and we'll see what else we'll find out about this as time passes. Stay tuned for more videos like this. My name is Marina Shepelsky. We handle divorces and family law, including custody, visitation, child support, alimony, and order of protection cases in New York and New Jersey. And I love talking about law and divorce and immigration law specifically. And I try to bring all the latest news to you. And stay tuned. Take care.